In the previous movie, Creating a Detail Callout, we created this callout view from a stair section with the intention of embellishing this and turning it into a construction detail for the stairs. I'm in a file called Detail Components, and in this movie, we're going to begin bringing in detail components and adding them to this view. So currently, all we're seeing is 3D geometry. We've cropped it down, and we've isolated the geometry we're interested in. But a big part of the detailing process in Revit is to now add two-dimensional embellishments on top of this 3D view to indicate the kind of things that, again, would not really be advantageous to model in 3D. So we're going to go over here to the Annotate tab and the Component tool, and we'll start with the Detail component. Now, the Component tool is a drop-down, and it will remember the last tool that you had active. So if you had one of these other tools active the last time, you might see something different here. Just click the little drop down and you'll get to Detail Component. Now, adding a detail component is pretty much exactly like adding a 3D component. You just choose something off the type selector and then click a point to place it in the view. The difference is these components, detail components, are all two-dimensional, and they sit on top of the model and actually cover up the underlying model geometry. The easiest way I can show you that is to use this very first component right here, this break line. This is actually kind of a finishing touch that you usually like to see in a detail, but we'll go ahead and add it first. Notice that we've got this little break line symbol right here, and I'm going to tap my space bar to rotate it. I'm actually going to tap twice more. Let me just go ahead and place it somewhere right here. You can see that it integrates a white mask that's actually covering up part of the model, and that's the reason I tapped the spacebar twice, because I knew the mask was going to be pointing the wrong way otherwise. If I tap it again 2 more times to spin it around the other way, now you'll see that it will work a little better on this side. Now, if I select either of these, they have shape handles on them, and we can sort of stretch those up so that this fully covers up. And the idea is that when we're done with this detail and we come down here and we turn off the crop region, that gives us the illusion that it was drawn this way, right? So that's our first detail component. It's a simple two-dimensional masking object that covers up the underlying geometry. But we have lots of other detail components that we can use, and so let's go ahead and choose the Detail Component tool again. And the next one I want to use is not actually in the project, so I'm going to go to the Load Family button. And there's a Detail Components folder in the installation that comes out of the box. I'll double-click in there. This folder is organized in CSI Master Spec sections. You can see there the various divisions and so on. So if you're familiar with CSI, you should be pretty comfortable with this organization. We'll double-click into the Metals folder, and then in Metal Fabrications, and then finally Metal Stairs. Now there's a few different components in here. I'm going to choose this one, Steel Pan section. Go ahead and click Open. And I'll just kind of place it right here for now so you can kind of see. Now it looks a little dark, right? Well, if I just roll my wheel, you'll see that there's actually a fill pattern in there, and when you're zoomed out too far, it just shows it as solid black. So just zoom in a little and that'll take care of that. I can place it off to the side like I've done and then use my Move or Align or other tools to get into position. But it turns out that if you actually place it near the component that you like, you see it'll actually snap itself directly in place. So that's probably a little nicer. So I'll go ahead and delete this one over here. Now, I'm going to move this exactly into position where I want it to be, and I'm going to do that in 2 steps. So the first move, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it like so. Then I'm going to zoom in a little closer, and the second move, I want to be very precise. So I'm going to start right at that point and snap right to this point here. And you can kind of see now that the width of this thing matches up pretty good with the underlying stair. Now we'll talk about the height in a few minutes. The next thing that I'm going to do is show you how to create an array. An array is basically just a group of copies. It does them equally spaced. And this is a tool that is pretty handy. So I'm going to go ahead and select this object, click the Array button on the Modify tab, and let's take a look at the settings here on the options bar. There's 2 kinds of arrays, linear or radial, and this is really an important checkbox right here, Group and Associate. When you do that, you can kind of see the dashed box around it. It groups the item, but the associate is the more important part. It actually keeps all of the settings that you set here in the options bar live and active. In other words, it makes a parametric array, meaning that you can go back and manipulate those parameters at any time and see the impact in real time take place in the model. So that's going to be a pretty handy way to do this. So it looks like I've got 3 treads showing here. So I'll go ahead and put in a quantity of 3. And we have 2 options for how to set the distance. If you choose second, you're setting the space between each item. If you choose last, you're setting the overall space of the total array, and it will just fill them in between. In this case, because I'm dealing with stairs of known size, I'm going to go ahead and leave it with the second option. And then my job is to indicate to Revit somehow that spacing that I want to use. And the easiest way to do that in this case is going to be to object snap right here, and then object snap the corresponding point on the next tread. So right there. And what you'll see is, if I zoom out just a touch, the 3 items array in a stair-step fashion, and then this temporary dimension appears down at the bottom. And you could actually interact with this item. I could change the number, and that's the parametric quality of the array. I could make it 6, and you can see they will go off screen there behind the crop region. I'm going to set it back to 3, which was the correct number for us in this case. So there's our 3 items. I'll go ahead and click anywhere to deselect that. We now have those arrayed stair treads here, but you can see that we still have a slight problem. They're slightly too tall. Now the reason for that is the family that we used here, the stair tread family, is actually set to a default height of 7 inches, and our stair is actually a little bit less than 7 inches. So what you want to do is select your stair first. Now remember, this is the live model stair in the background. And scroll down here and identify what the actual tread is. So the actual tread is 6 and 171/256 of an inch. Now make sure you remember that. Next, I'm going to click on the grouped/arrayed item, and I'm going to choose Edit Group. Because remember, when it arrayed, it actually put it inside a group. Now I'm going to select the 2D family, the component family, and the riser height is actually part of the type properties of this family. So I'm going to choose Edit Type. And there's my 7 inches. And did you all remember what the number was we wanted to put in here? You did remember, didn't you? It's 171/256, but don't forget to put inches, because if you just press enter there, you'll get 6 and 171/256 feet, which will be a very, very tall riser. I'm going to go ahead and click apply, and you'll see it change in the background. Click OK, and when I click finish, that change will apply across the entire array. So all the items are now matching up correctly with their underlying stairs. And let me just show you one other quick benefit here of the array. If I select one of these items and begin to move it, notice what's happening to the other items in the array. You see, this is what we mean by creating a parametric array. So we've kind of linked the relationship of all these items together. So later, if the stairs should change, we have 2 steps to adjust our detail to match the stairs. We adjust the array, and that shifts the position of each item, and then we go in, like we just did, to the family, edit its type, and change the riser height and possibly the tread depth, and then we'll be all set. So I'm going to undo that with Control-Z. One last thing before we move out of this movie. Notice how the break line is actually behind the group here. All I have to do is select the break line, and over here on the ribbon, I can say bring to front, and it will now restore the illusion and cover up the underlying item there. So detail components are these 2-dimensional families that sit on top of the model. They actually cover up the underlying model geometry, as you can see. We also looked at an array as a quick way to duplicate these items. In the next movie, we're going to add some filled regions and some other components and finish out this detail.